All right, if you haven't seen, this is now part two. So part one starts with me at a bigger screen, and part two gets right into the meat because we're going right down the document list. Part two, now on document number 58. So let's pull that up on screen. We're just going to keep plugging through this. Hopefully we're going to do this in three parts for documents 51 through 100. And if you haven't seen the first part in the series, go back and watch that. I've got a lot of videos, a lot of hours. All right. This is from Lawrence Mallory on 12/5/22 regarding an event on November 21st. Okay, let's get into the documents. Let's go. On November 21st, 2022, I requested and was granted a warrant for Meta, the parent company for Facebook and Instagram, for the accounts associated with, and then we got a bunch of people's accounts that we're not allowed to see. Still, after all this time, on November 21, 2022, I logged into Meta Law Enforcement's portal located at blah, 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 and served the warrants on the following times. So we're looking for a specific time on certain dates. The dates and the Instagram accounts are blocked out. I don't know exactly what was going on there, but the times from 1100 hours to 2039 on certain days. Anyways, during this service of the warrant, I found I was not able to add the phone number of somebody as an identifier for JD. I believe that would be Jack DeCour. So they're looking for Facebook/Meta/Instagram account information about Jack DeCour, ex-boyfriend of Kaylee Gonzalez. Again, I've stated in an earlier set of videos, Kaylee is the focus of much of this investigation early on. And so when they tell you early on that we believe this was a targeted attack, and then later on tell you bold-faced during the press conference when it's all over, hey, by the way, you told us over and over again it was a targeted attack. Can you tell us now who the target of the house was? Nope, can't tell you who the target was. Can't tell you. Somebody was targeted. The media tried to tell you it was Maddie, but you know what? When they asked, hey, did you finally make that connection between Brian Koberger and Maddie? You know, we really, really wanted to make a connection between Brian Koberger and Maddie, and we couldn't do it. We really wanted to make a connection between Brian Koberger and any of the girls, and we couldn't do it. So who was targeted? Can't tell you. Can't tell you. Well, if you look at the documents, you'll know exactly, in my opinion, it's an opinion, who the focus of the investigation was. They believe that Kaylee Gonzalez was targeted. I believe, based on the sheer number of things they do around Kaylee and her ex-boyfriend and everyone involved with Kaylee. So they're looking into Kaylee extensively, in my opinion. During the service of the warrant, I found that I was not able to obtain the phone number of whoever it is, as an identifier for JD. I believe that's Jack DeCour. That's ex-boyfriend of Kaylee Gonzalez. This information was not entered into the portal. So then we continue. No information was returned for the account associated with the phone number. That's Jack DeCour's phone number. So just let you know, they were digging into his Instagram. I've heard things. I've heard rumors about Jack DeCour saying some things on social media about Kaylee that were not flattering. I have never seen them. I can't prove it. I just know that people have said, yeah, Jack said some nasty shit about Kaylee, his ex-girlfriend. According to a lot of people want to tell you, everything was cool between Jack DeCour and Kaylee, even though she had broke up with him 3 weeks before the murder, maybe 3 months, according to one person, but I think 3 weeks before the murder. And he had been reported by somebody close to him as having mental health issues. He was not doing well with the breakup of the relationship. And she was sleeping with multiple people, somebody in Texas, some booty call in town, possibly, according to some friends, the kind of person that would hook up with random guys at the bar, Tinder dating, all these things. Kaylee was out spreading her wings, if you will, and Jack DeCour wasn't handling it well. But if you listen to the prosecution and Hippler, none of that makes any sense. That is not a good motive for murder. Only an incel next door, Pullman, who can't get laid, makes any sense. And by the way, we really wanted to make a connection showing that he knew the girls, but we can't. Also, by the way, under oath, we can't place Brian Koberger in the house. We can place his phone near the house, but we can't place Brian Koberger in the house. Despite the fact that we can't prove that he knew the girls, that he had any connection with them, and we really wanted to, and we couldn't place him in the house, but we really wanted to. Despite all that, all these other alternative suspects, they're not worth it. Only the guy that we can't prove ever knew the girls and had any connection at all. Yes, I hit it hard. Victim phone extraction. Now I have a lot here, and so hopefully I highlighted it for a reason. Let's get into it. On November 15, this is days after the murder on 2022, November 15, I contacted Detective David Taylor of the Coeur d'Alene Police Department with a request for an agency assist. So Moscow Police is asking for assist from Coeur d'Alene Police, where, by the way, where Jack DeCour, Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mogan all come from, including kind of Xana Kernodle, Post Falls, Idaho, but also kind of hanging out in Coeur d'Alene. So They're reaching out to the Coeur d'Alene area, probably about the victims, who most of them came from that area. I requested assistance unlocking the cell phone of Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. I'm imagining all the phones were purchased probably in Coeur d'Alene. But anyways, that's just an aside. So they're asking for assistance from Coeur d'Alene's police department to unlock these phones. I emailed Detective Taylor a copy of the signed warrant describing the phones that are being searched as being searchable. On November 16th, a day later, the phones were transported to the Coeur d'Alene Police Department for a forensic brute force attempt to unlock them. However, Detective Taylor stated that he was not able to extract any information from the locked phones, and the phones were not supported for brute force PIN code extraction. The phones were then returned to Moscow Police Department on November 17. Now, if they had iPhones, which I think they did, they had iPhones. iPhones, by the way, as a little public service announcement, iPhones are a hell of a lot more secure, in my opinion, than Androids. I use Android, so that's coming from an Android user. One of the things that I've been fighting is moving over to iPhones because I believe in security, and Androids are like a freaking sieve. The government can get into Androids pretty fucking easy, but notoriously, Apple has given the finger to law enforcement when law enforcement, even with a warrant, comes and says, I want your private users' data. They're like, we're not going to help you jailbreak our phones. We're not going to help you violate our customers' privacy, even with the warrant sometimes. So, yeah, just as an FYI, I'm not even an Apple user, and I'm saying these kids had Apples. That's probably why they can't get into the phones. So there you go. If you want security, maybe you want to use an Apple. All right. I then asked for assistance from Captain Tyson Barrett in an attempt to gain PIN codes from the family members to access the data on the devices. So can't brute force it. I don't know why they didn't just ask the family first. Now they're going to ask the family. Okay, do you guys happen to know what pins they would use for the phones? I was provided PIN codes for Mogan, Kernodle, and Chapin, which successfully unlocked the devices. So the parents or family members knew their son, brothers, sisters' PIN codes, and they were able to give that to law enforcement, and they got in. The PIN codes provided for Gonzalez's phone did not unlock the device, either because the Gonzaleses don't want to work with law enforcement, or they just didn't know what Kaylee's up to. On the 3 devices I was able to unlock, I performed advanced logical extractions on the devices at the Moscow Police Department. A report for each device was completed separately. On November 20th, days later, I again requested the assistance of Detective Taylor in gaining a full file system extraction on the 3 unlocked devices. The phones were delivered to Coeur d'Alene Police Department on November 21st. On November 22nd, Detective Taylor stated that he would not be able to complete the extractions. On November 23rd, I went to the Coeur d'Alene Police Department and picked up the phones. I then took them to Post Falls Police Department and spoke with Detective Neil Uhrig. Detective Uhrig informed me that his forensic tools would not support a full-scale or full file system extraction. And as a lot of this is not probably necessary for me to read, but basically the point being is, let me see if I can skip through this. They did find a place in was it Walla Walla? That would do the full scale. On November 28th, Detective Ruchart informed me that the phone extractions were complete and ready to be picked up. On November 29th, Detective Dustin Dean picked up the phones, returned them to Moscow, blah, 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 blah. So they got in full dumps off of 3 of the phones, not Kaylee Gonzalez's phone. Just thought it was interesting. It's not necessarily a question about answering the murders. It's just FYI. It's cool to learn some information. Some of you internet sleuths out there might dig deeper into this, and I want to give you the leads that I think you could go down in case you're like better at FOIA requests and all stuff like that. So now let's talk about Lawrence Mowry's report 12-6 about things that happened on November 22nd, 2022, days after the murder. Actually, probably about a week and a day after the murder. Or actually 9 days after the murder. Anyways, on November 22nd, 2022, I applied for and was granted a PIN warrant for any data associated with the phone number, whatever, which was linked to a possible witness, MM. And again, who is MM? I think there's more than one MM. Just like there's many people involved in this case with multiple initials that are the same. When we redact them down to 2 initials, who is it? I'm wondering, though, I think by the length of the characters, this is, again, Maddie McMichaels. This is the DoorDash driver, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have a problem being corrected. Help me get the facts straight for later on when I'm doing follow-up videos. I'm like, okay, I've sat with this longer and I figured it out. I believe this is they're looking into the phone associated with a witness, possible. They're saying a possible witness, which would be the DoorDash driver. So they know a DoorDash driver delivered food to Xana Kernodle or to that house that night. Now they're looking for the DoorDash driver, and I believe that's Molly McMichaels. Special Agent Nick Balance from the FBI with the Federal Bureau of Investigations assisted in the production and service of that warrant. McMichaels, I believe is what the redacted name is, was subsequently identified, located, and interviewed as a witness by Brett Payne. Okay, so we know Molly was contacted by the police at least as early as November 22nd, 2022. File that away in the member banks. Let's get into another document. From Dallinger, 12/8, December 8th, 2022, the year of the murders. On December 7th, so that would be shortly a month or so right after, before Brian Koberger is identified, on December 7th, 2022, at approximately 10 o'clock in the morning, I was assisted with the packing and moving of personal belongings out of the residence at 1122 King Street, and Captain Barrett and I were in the process of packing items from Kaylee Gonzalez's room on the 3rd floor. Inside the closet, I was removing items from a black plastic 3-drawer organizer. In the bottom drawer, I located a Kodak Power Flash disposable camera and a GoPro camera in a small black zippered pouch. I was unaware of these items that had been located during any of the previous searches of the residence, so I took custody of them until I could learn that information. So again, what last pictures were taken on the phones? Is that going to lead to a suspect? Is it going to lead to telling us what happened that night? Obviously, they should be grabbing cameras that are in there. And it's just interesting to note. I don't know that anything comes of it, but I thought it was interesting to note the things that were found in Kaylee's room or whatever. So I advised Captain Barrett of the items and showed them to him. After completing packing and moving into personal belongings, I brought the GoPro and the Kodak camera back to the police department prior to leaving the residence. I also took possession of the keys to all the vehicles belonging to the deceased. Once back at the police department, I locked the items into temporary storage locker and the evidence processing room. And I believe they ended up towing the cars of the deceased away for a while. Eventually, we'll find that out. I later contacted the investigative team and learned that the memory card from the GoPro was seized during a previous search of the residence. So officers had found the GoPro before. They decided to leave the camera behind but take the memory card for extraction, and now he's taking the whole camera. So they're explaining why this happened. In case anybody gets fishy, it's good to document what happened. Why is the camera separate from the SD card? Well, because previously an officer came and they took the flash card out of the camera. Later on, the camera was picked up. Hopefully, there's a police report that shows when the flash card was picked up. That's how chain of custody is supposed to work, so we can know who grabbed what at what time. Anyways, I was told the Kodak disposable camera should be booked into evidence, and that's all. We can move on to another document. Some of this stuff is not super relevant. You're going to be like, why are you reading it? I don't know. I highlighted it because I thought it was interesting. Anytime you find out what the girls were wearing, what they had in their possession, what they had done that night, even if it doesn't relate directly to the murder, I find it's interesting because we've been talking about these people for 2.5, 3 years. It's time for us to know as much as we possibly can and see what's relevant and what's not. Throw it against the wall, see what sticks. Now we're looking at Tyson Barrett on December 8th, 2022, about an incident that happened on December 7th at 2022. So this is, again, before Brian Koberger is identified, after the murders. After the murders and before Brian Koberger is identified. It's late at night. Holy shit, what time is it? Anyways. So on 12/7/2022 at about 9:45 in the morning, I met with MPD command staff members at 1122 King Road to package and remove personal items of the victims. Captain Dallinger and I packed up the belongings in Kaylee Gonzalez's room. I worked along the north and west sides of the room. Captain Dallinger worked along the south and east sides of the room. While I was packing items, I noticed $125 in cash on the dresser. So, not a big deal. Kaylee's got a bunch of cash in the room. Not a bunch of cash, but Kayla's got cash in the room. Not a big deal. A $100 bill, a $10 bill, a $5 or two $5 bills, and 5 $1 bills. Captain Dallinger and I both counted the money, and I put it in a small clutch. That's so that people don't accuse police officers of stealing cash and pocketing money. One officer's checked the other officer's work. This is how much money we found, and they wrote it. It's all good. I placed the clutch in one of the boxes and marked the box that it had cash in it, and Captain Dallinger and I both initialed the box. This is who touched the money. This is how much money was in the box. It's all good. It's all good for CYA. Cover your ass. After all the personal items that were recoverable were packaged, we moved them to a U-Haul van and transported them to the Moscow City shop. At the shop, we unloaded the packaged items into a secure building. Moving on. We're really cooking through this. We're at 14 minutes, and we're making good progress. We might be able to do. There's some big documents coming. So I think we're going to be able to do this in 3 videos, but there's some big documents coming. All right, here's Lawrence Mowry, 12/8/2022. On December 6th, and now we're talking about, again, after the murders, but before Brian Koberger is identified, on December 6th, 2022, I applied and was granted for the user subscribed information associated with accounts that communicated with Kaylee Gonzalez's Tinder accounts using the following identifiers: Snapchat, whatever. Again, focuses on Kaylee Gonzalez and her Tinder accounts. What guys she's hooking up with. What guys is she sleeping with in town? What guys is she seeing? How's her boyfriend taking it? These are all questions law enforcement are looking into the early stages. Now, one can argue that yes, police did their due diligence and they ruled out Jack DeCour. It's not like they didn't look. They were definitely looking. And Kaylee was the focus, apparently for some reason. I think because of the extent of the wounds. The extent of the injuries on Kaylee were much worse than anyone else, I believe, although we've been told now, I think we've been told Xana was stabbed at least 50 times and Kaylee was stabbed 30 times. So less times perhaps stabbed, but maybe more viciously. Face was beyond recognition on Kaylee for sure. We don't know about Xana. Xana was stabbed in the face as well, it sounds like, but Kaylee was stabbed so badly, to be a little gruesome, so badly in the face, she was so cut and mutilated in the face that officers weren't sure what they were looking at when they were looking at her. That's how bad it was. I know that's gruesome and that puts vivid images in your mind, but they couldn't even tell what they were looking at when they were looking at her face. So she was unrecognizable. All right, which in a way, for you big conspiracy theorists, for your really big conspiracy theorists, how do you know for sure that's the person when they're unrecognizable? But I'm going to set that aside. There's many ways to identify people, but but anyways, let's move on. I shouldn't have even said that because I don't even go down that road. On December 6th, so after the murders, before Brian Koberger is identified, on December 6th, 2022, I applied and was granted for a warrant for user subscriber information associated with the Tinder accounts of Maddie Mogan. So yes, Maddie's Tinder account, I also had a Tinder account. So Maddie and Kaylee were searched. I wanted to point that out because it wasn't just, and I've said this many times, it wasn't just Kaylee, but Kaylee is the uber obsession in my opinion. But they did look at Maddie's Tinder accounts as well. Tyson Barrett on 12/12, December 12th of the year of the murders. On 12/12 at about 8:30 in the morning, I met with the Gonzalez something, SG, at the city shop. Now, I would normally say that's Steve Gonzalez, but it can't be because the G name is too short. So I met with the Gonzalez's something, SG at City Shop. I had previously arranged to release Kaylee Gonzalez's personal property to G. Is that a sister of Kaylee? So we know Christy's the mother. We know Steve's the father. We know Olivia, and I think there's another sister. So was it a Gia? I don't know. I can't remember. Is that the sister? Anyway, so they're going to release Kaylee's personal property to somebody, G, at the family's request. So the family wanted somebody with the name of G to show up and pick this stuff up. I unlocked the secure evidence building and removed 22 boxes containing Kaylee's personal items that had been removed from the residence into G's vehicle. There wasn't enough room in the vehicle for all the items, so G, somebody, made a return trip. At that point, we loaded the remaining items, 2 purple totes, a clear plastic tote, and a yellow suitcase. G, whoever they are, signed for the items, and Officer Rosinski took a photo of his ID to attach the form at a later date. Okay, so if you guys know in the comments, please let me know who G is. I'm assuming it's one of the Gonzalez family. It's certainly somebody that Gonzalez's know, probably a family member. Let me know if you know. I'm sure you guys do know, and I'm behind the ball on that. Lawrence Mallory from 12/12. But it's about an incident on December 6th. On December 6th, once again, after the murders, before the identification of Brian Koberger. On December 6, 2022, I applied and was granted a warrant for all the information in DoorDash's possession related to sales, deliveries, purchases, and or transactions made to 1122 King Road in Moscow for the period of January 1st, 2022 to the present. So they're looking for how often does DoorDash come to the house, who delivers the stuff to the house, who orders the stuff to the house. They're looking for that kind of information because DoorDash is on their mind. So let's just put that on our mind. Let's move on. The good thing is we're flying through some documents, and we need to because there is some meat, and I want to do this in only 3 parts. I don't want you to keep you forever. I know that some of this is not as necessary as it probably can be, but I'm trying to give you a really deep dive analysis. Lawrence Mallory, 12/12, December 12th, and here we go on. This is about an incident on November 18th, 2022. This is much more close to the murders on November 13th. This is November 18th, so we're looking at 5 days. So I logged into the Uber law enforcement portal and submitted an exigent preservation request for any location data associated with the Uber driver, EG. I believe that's Eric Gower, I think. with the phone number of, and that would be Eric's phone number. Due to the nature of the investigation, Uber recommended an exigency request for the preservation. In a screenshot received from AG, I will believe that is Olivia Gonzalez, the sister of Kaylee Gonzalez. We know that early in the investigation, she was heavily involved in helping law enforcement figure shit out. She was actually more on the ball than they were in many ways, if you listen to the Gonzalez's, and I think she might be actually right. So in a screenshot received from, and I'm going to go ahead and say Olivia Gonzalez, it showed a message which appeared to be from G, and I believe that's Gower's phone, the Uber driver, between Kaylee Gonzalez and himself. The name of the recipient is Kaylee's Uber. So again, Kaylee is texting on her phone the Uber driver, Eric Gower, I believe. And this is important for the connection. What's really important is discussing whether or not the Uber driver was on call that night and how that relates. Again, when you're talking about alternative suspects, we need to look for suspicious activity. What is out of the ordinary? What happened differently that night? And so again, if Hippler is okay with all these people being ruled out because the only person that makes sense is the guy next door who's an incel and can't get laid, then so be it. But some of us have questions. All right. Is it unknown if it was unknown if G, and we'll say that's Gower, was on duty with Uber at the time of him picking up Gonzalez and Maddie Mogan. So we believe that he did pick the girls up from an Uber at the grub truck that night and took them back to the King Road residence. The question is, was he working for Uber at the time? Because, as you'll find out, the girls had a habit of texting Eric Gower whether he was working for Uber or not. And again, I pointed out, one of the reasons they do it is they befriended the driver. So now we know they're friends. They're not just drivers. They've got some kind of personal relationship, to the point that Eric Gower would, for example, have the girls call them when he was off duty, not working for Uber, because then he doesn't have to pay Uber a commission for picking up the ride. So if they have his personal cell phone and say, hey, I want a ride, they can pay him cash under the table, and he doesn't have to pay Uber. It's kind of a little, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours thing. I'll give you a little discount on the ride. You give me money directly. We won't tell Uber about anything. I'll just be off duty. All right. Uber stated if the driver was on duty, it would show the location of the vehicle. If the driver was not on duty, Uber would not have the data. I was informed by Uber customer service. This is common if the driver provides personal transportation services. So yes, the driver, Eric Gower, apparently knew Kaylee enough to get his personal phone in her phone, and she would just call Eric Gower or text him directly rather than using the Uber app to pick up a ride sometimes, right? And so later when you find out, for example, that somebody texts a driver and says, are you driving? That might be an indication. Are you on the clock or not? And maybe that are you driving is an indicator of, hey, if you want to get paid for a ride and cut out Uber, make sure you're not driving for Uber right now when I text you. Keep that in your mind. I know that right now you may not know what the hell I just said. You might be thinking, what are you trying to say? Just keep in mind, there's another individual in the house who texts the driver that says, are you still driving? Were they trying to confirm that the person wasn't driving under Uber and being tracked by Uber? And is that part of the equation? I'm not going to go any further with that. Just keep that in your mind at the moment. Danny Vargas, 1213. Now, this is a meatier document. This is one of the meaty ones, and we're at 23 minutes, so good. We are on pace to finish today's thing in three dives. So let's get into it. On December 1st, and a lot of this might be unnecessary, but it's a lot, so I want to share it because it's details. Details are important. This is about December 1st, 2022. This would be, again, after the murders, but before Brian Koberger is identified. Corporal Payne, and this is being written by Danny Vargas. Corporal Payne asked if I could assist with interviewing members of Ethan Chapin at the Latah County Annex building. I arrived and spoke with MC, that's a family member, I believe, of Chapin. Ethan's some family member relation, was it mother? And I can't remember Ethan Chapin's parents' names right now, so unfortunately bad on me. So I introduced myself to M, this family member of Ethan Chapin, and told her I would be recording our conversation so I would not miss anything. She said, So M had filled out an adult victim background questionnaire, which I reviewed before speaking with M, this family member. There's some things that were said that I didn't find was important. Xana, they're talking about Xana. Ethan and Xana had been dating. This is according to the family that's being interviewed. Ethan and Xana had been dating for about, I think this is a sister, by the way. I think this has to be a sister of Ethan. In fact, it's Maisie. I just remembered. I think this is Maisie Chapin, right? It's a triplet of Ethan Chapin. So I'm going to go ahead and go backwards and say I think MC here is Maisie Chapin. It's the sister of Ethan Chapin, and it makes sense from the context. I just put it together right now. See, I told you I was tired earlier in the video. I'm tired. I'm not sure I'm going to get these things. I think I just got it right. I'm going to go ahead and say, and I could be wrong. I'm going to go ahead and say this is an interview with Maisie, right? So Ethan and Xana have been dating for about a year and met through school. Maisie, I'm going to say, has known Xana for 1 year and met her through Ethan, her brother. Maisie talked with Xana, and again, if I got the name wrong, I'm screwed because I'm going to say it a lot. Maisie talked with Xana once during Rush, so that's Rush Week, but never hung out with her until Xana started dating Ethan, her brother, I'm going to say. She partied with Xana, so that's Maisie, I believe, partied with Xana, which would make sense. They're in the same basic age. Her brother, being a triplet, they're all the same age. She partied with Xana, but never hung out with her outside of that. Xana was a junior, had a lot of friends, and knew most of the campus. Maisie, I'm going to say, met Xana's dad briefly during Parents' Weekend, never met Xana's sister, and never heard anything factual about Xana's mom, but knew Xana did not have contact with her because Xana's mom has had a drug history and they were estranged, and that's things that we know. I'm just giving you extra background. Most of you already know that. Some of you don't, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of background, and it's going to sound really confusing if you don't already know all these things, and I talk super, super fast. So you might have to pause and listen to it again, which may be good for me. I don't know, maybe more watch time. Anyways, Ethan would often spend time with Xana while she was at work at Mad Greek. So Ethan hung out all the time, I guess, or often at Mad Greek when his girlfriend was working. Ethan and Xana never mentioned having weird feelings about anyone, customers or employees at Mad Greek. And again, I remind you at the press conference, they really, really wanted to make a connection that Brian Koberger had seen Maddie at the Mad Greek, but they couldn't do so. But they really wanted to. Ethan never said anything negative about his relationship with Xana to her. So things were good between Ethan and Xana, according to the sister. Now we have P.E., and my brain's not working. P is a blank and in the blank fraternity. So P is some male in a frat that has a position, maybe? I don't know. M, I'm thinking Maisie, does not know much about P, this person from the frat. M, I think it's Maisie, thought that P was a farmer and from California, but she was not sure. Ethan would spend a lot of time with this person P, and they met through the fraternity. Ethan and this person P from the frat were very similar and would often watch football together on Sundays. P, whoever this person is from the frat, lives at some location we're not allowed to know about. Ethan would hang out with P 3, 4, or 5 times out of the week. When Ethan would be with P, they would spend time at Xana's residence, whatever this is, residence, and several apartments at the Whites, which is a name of a location that the kids all party at. And then the location is probably listed in parentheses. EA, and that could be several different people, so I'm not going to even say who it is. I think I know, but I'm not sure. EA and JL, apartment, blank, on second floor, left side. The blank apartment at the Whites, and then a bunch of initials and a bunch of shit. And I'm not even going to attempt to decipher that. Now we're going to go for KF. I'm not sure who that is. K was one of Ethan's closest friends. You guys know. Go ahead and let it in the comments. If you do comment, play the way. Please remember that I might not remember when you just say K is this. Just say K is Ethan's friend, this name, when you're trying to help me figure this out. K lives at some location we don't get to know. M, I'm still thinking it's Maisie based on the length, stated that K and P, that's the friend from the frat, were Ethan's closest friends. You guys probably know who it is. Please let me know so I can get my shit straight. M, being Maisie, I believe, did not see any drug use amongst any of Ethan and his friends, but they drank a lot, which is normal for the fraternity life. Now, again, does the fact that Maisie says she doesn't know about her brother doing drugs mean that he doesn't do drugs? Does it mean that he doesn't tell her he does drugs? Or does it mean that she knows he does drugs but doesn't want to tell a police officer that he does drugs? There's lots of different reasons. It doesn't mean it's factual that she says she hasn't seen him do drugs. It doesn't mean that it's not factual. Just keep that in mind. There's many reasons why somebody might not tell the police officers that your brother does drugs. All right. Now, HJ, would this be, and yes it is, I'm going to say it, I'm going to call it, this is Hunter Johnson. Hunter Johnson is dating Emily, and is it Arndt, or I keep getting the name wrong, whatever the last name is, it's Emily. So Emily A. So we got Hunter Johnson is dating Emily A. We know this, and that's what I believe it is. And was the person who Bethany and Dylan, those are redacted names, but I'm going to call it right now, Bethany and Dylan, called to come to their house the morning of the homicide. We know that's true. Documentary said Bethany and Dylan called Emily/Hunter and asked them to come over. All of that shit rings true. Ethan golfed a lot with J, that's probably Hunter Johnson, and J, I don't know which J that is, and E, that could be Emily, came to their house over the past summer several times and hung out. Ethan never had any issues with J, and I don't know which J that is. Could be Hunter Johnson. Now, M, I believe is Maisie, never heard of or observed Ethan get into fights with anyone. Ethan never confided in her about having problems with or frustrations with anyone. Ethan never mentioned having any issues with any of the girls he lived with, who lived with Xana. So she's just establishing, no, I don't think Ethan has any enemies. Who would want to kill my brother? M, I think is still Maisie, spent time at Xana's house and never observed any issues between any of the roommates. M, being Maisie, I believe, said she did not know Maddie or Kaylee well, and she knew B and D better. So again, pay attention to who knows what. It may become important later when you're trying to do the internet sleuthing and figuring out what happened in the house that night. Maisie is better friends with Dylan and Bethany and doesn't really know Kaylee and Maddie much at all. So we're starting to free a friends circle. Maisie, Ethan, Xana, Dylan, Bethany, and Maddie and Kaylee may be on the outside of that friends circle. So keep those things in mind when you're trying to sleuth this out and figure out what happened that night. All right. Maisie thought if Ethan did have anything he needed to talk to someone about, he would most likely speak with their blank H or Xana because he saw them daily. So who's that? Is that Hunter? I don't know. Oh, yes. Here's what it is. I'm going to give you the interpretation. I think here it is. Maisie thought if Ethan did have anything he needed to talk to somebody about, he would likely speak to their brother. That's what's redacted, Hunter. That's what I think. So Ethan has a brother, Hunter. There's also a Hunter Johnson who's a friend of theirs. So that's the confusion. But I'm going to call it right now. Maisie thought if Ethan, her brother, had anything that he needed to talk to somebody about, he would likely speak to their brother, Hunter, or Xana because he saw them daily. Maisie said Ethan was an open book and was not a private person. I asked Maisie, I'm going to call it, if she knew that what Ethan did on Friday and Saturday, November 11th or 12th. Now he's on to find out what do you know happened that night. Maisie said she was not sure what Ethan did on Friday. Maisie said on Saturday, Ethan did not go to the football game or tailgate and thought that he spent that time at the White's house, possibly at somebody's. So that could be J and E. That could be, J and E apartment. So J and E apartment. I don't know if that's a person's name or a name of an apartment complex. Maisie said in the evening, Ethan went with her to her formal event, which was at Hunga Dunga from 1900 to 2000 hours. So that's what, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Anyways, Maisie said they drove to Hunga Dunga in their vehicle with Ethan. HC, which is probably Hunter Chapin, their brother, with his date, RS, whole bunch of initials, and his date. I'm going to stop trying to guess at what the initials are. There's too many initials. It could be easy to confuse. Anyways, Maisie, I believe, we're going to go back to that, said Hunga Dunga was rented by her sorority, and this was a private event. Maisie, I believe, told me that she knew the majority of everyone who was at the Hunga Dunga, and nothing out of the ordinary occurred while they were at the event. Again, take it for a grain of salt. I have said it a million times. What happened that night in the house all stems from the Corner Club, not what the fuck was going on with Xana and Ethan. Xana and Ethan weren't really what happened in that house. I know that there's arguments to be made. Xana was the target of the house, and I'm not going to say that couldn't happen. My guess, though, is everything that happened in that house has to do with what happened at the Corner Club. That's my guess. And Maisie said they all left Hunga Dunga in the same car and drove to her sorority, where the girls, including her, got out, went inside, changed clothes. Maisie said that R, H, and R all got back into the car and left with Ethan, H, D, and J to go to a party at some place. Maisie said she texted Ethan at approximately, that would be what, 8:14, telling him that she did not want to go with them to some place and was going to stay at her sorority. Maisie said that Ethan texted her several times trying to convince her to come to whatever party places he's at, but she did not go and eventually fell asleep at around 10 o'clock at night, it looks like. Maisie said that the such and such party was just a normal Saturday evening party. So again, nothing going on. I don't really think anything happened at that party. I asked Maisie, this is the cop now talking, I asked Maisie if she saw any weird comments on Ethan's social media. Maisie said she recently logged into Ethan's Instagram account and made it private because it was public and a lot of random people were making bad comments on it. Now, I'm presuming that means after his murder. After her brother was murdered, she went in and checked his social media, and people are saying shitty things to Ethan or about Ethan on his social media. So she marked the account private so people would stop interacting with her brother's account on Instagram or whatever the case it was, right? Maisie said people were speculating this was a drug-related thing or something to do with the girls. I would love to see the text that people are putting on there. Are there secrets? Are there hidden gems in the things that people were saying and accusing them of? We won't know because that probably won't come out. Maisie told me that she did not notice the names of the people who were commenting, but said that they were weird accounts with just one follower. That usually means somebody's trying to hide their identity. They create a profile, and it's either a bot. Bots create one follower things, or just a bot, or somebody who just wants to create an account just long enough to shit all over you and not have you know who it is. So they don't have any followers. It's just a dummy account, so they can shit on you and be a coward and shit on you. Anyways, or you need to be anonymous. Doesn't necessarily mean you're a coward. You need to be anonymous for your own life. I don't know. Maisie said people were making bad comments all over the other victims' accounts as well. So I asked Maisie if the girls had any bad feelings with any of their neighbors. Maisie said she did not think so. Maisie told me that she was at Xana's house a lot of the weekends and said that they would often get noise complaints. Maisie said that she was present for 2 of the noise complaints. Maisie thought that the person making the complaint lived in a house behind 1122 King Road residence, but was not certain. Again, not super important. Does somebody who's just pissed off that the house is always noisy decide he's going to kill all the people in the house because he's pissed off with the noise? But you do have a neighbor who's complaining regularly and calling in police about the noise complaint at the house. So that could be an alternative suspect, or at least somebody you want to look into. Did police look into him, or did Hitler say that's ridiculous? And again, just a noise complaint. I don't think anybody's going to go slaughter a house because they're pissed off with the noise. Although stranger things have happened. I can think at the top of my head a murder case that actually did happen because somebody was tired of their dog barking all the time. So who knows? Anyways, but okay. So Maisie told me that she never witnessed any retaliation from any of the neighbors. I asked, I believe Maisie, if Xana and her roommates knew everyone who lived around them, and she said that she did not know. I thanked Maisie for speaking with me and told her if she thought of anything else to let me know. My conversation with Maisie was recorded and copied onto a DVD. All right, that's one of the biggest documents we have to read, and we're at 37 minutes. We have a chance, people, of getting through the deep dive of documents 51 through 100 in 3 videos. Lawrence Mowry on 12/13 about an event that happened on November 21st. This is weeks after or a week or so after the murders, but before Brian Koberger has been identified. On November 21st, 2022, I applied for and was granted a warrant to Walmart for related sales of the following items for the period of January 1st through to the present. He's looking for any sales of a K-bar knife, USM fighting knife sheath, or straight-edged knife from Walmart. I thought earlier we had read in another document that Walmart doesn't sell K-bar knives, but he's asking for a warrant. It doesn't mean that those two things can't exist. It is possible that they submitted a warrant to Walmart for K-bar knife sales, and that Walmart came back and said, we don't even sell K-bar knife sales. So just keep that in mind. But we don't know. On December 8th, I received a packet from Walmart containing paper documents and 2 DVDs with sales data on them from local Walmart in Moscow, Idaho. These files were downloaded to the forensic computers and located in a secure print. So that indicates maybe they did get hits when they asked for how many K-bar knives were sold in your area, and maybe they did sell K-bar knives because they did get data back. So, and if it's 2 pages, it probably wasn't just we don't sell K-bar knives. It probably was K-bar knives. But again, keep in mind, Brian Koberger's knife, according to what the prosecution will tell you, he bought it on Amazon. And we do see later on where they talk about Amazon. But what you will see in the early investigation is they're looking everywhere. Every person that sells K-bar knives, they want to know. They eventually, when they get the name Brian Koberger, go look at Brian Koberger trying to buy a K-bar knife. But before that, they were looking for everybody, and a lot of people buy K-bar knives. A lot of people buy K-bar knives. Tyson Barrett, 12/13/2022. This is about an event on December 12th. It's a good month after the murders, 1 month after the murders. Idaho State Police Detective Lake asked me to request information from the U of I, University of Idaho, OCRI, regarding a rape involving U of I students that was reported in 2021. I emailed the request to somebody with U of I Office of General Counsel. So not a big deal, and the sentence reads weird. He's looking into a previous incident in 2021 involving a rape involving University of Idaho students. So did one person rape multiple students? Was it rapes involving students? Was it a rape of a student and they just pluraled? I don't know. It sounds like it was a rape, singular, involving several students. So I don't know. And I don't know that it pertains to the case, other than law enforcement was like, well, let's look into any kind of sexual crimes. So was there a sexual, see, that's where you go. Was there a sexual element to the crime? Or if you're Bill Thompson, you get up there and say, I want to make it clear to everyone there is no sexual element to this crime. Later on, you'll find out, Steve Gonzalez will say, by the way, there was a sexual element to the crime. Those girls were gagged and passed out. That's a sexual element, because we know Brian Koberger was looking as a sexual fetish into gagged and drunk girls. So therefore, it was a sexual element. So the question is, was there any evidence of sexual assault in the killings? We don't know. And if it was, then how did they do that in 8 minutes to 12 minutes? 40 minutes in, let's keep going. Brett Payne, 1213, interview with, now we have BJ. BJ. Everybody likes anyways. I don't know who BJ is, and we're talking about an interview from BJ from K-Bar. Oh, it's a representative from K-Bar Company. That's why we don't know who BJ is. On 12/2/2022, the FBI tip line received a call from K-Bar employee, somebody, referencing a LM, an individual. So they're called, somebody from K-Bar, an employee from K-Bar is calling about a person that they know. M had been contacted earlier on 12/1 by ISP detectives Boone and Barrett, so Idaho State Police, due to his name being provided by K-Bar on a list of people who had placed orders for the K-Bar. This person stated that a call taker, somebody is named from K-Bar, received a strange phone call from somebody on 12/1/2022. So this is we need to pay attention. There's a strange phone call. It's strange enough that the police were like all over, like, what the fuck with this phone call? This seems very suspicious. By the way, keep in mind, Hitler said there's absolutely no alternative suspects. Nobody has anything suspicious. The only person that makes sense is Brian Koberger. Jay stated that she answered the call with the normal greeting directed by K-Bar, and this person interjected when she asked about his concerns about the call and stated, we'll get to that later. This person went on, who's on the call, went on to tell this employee why the order was canceled, why they canceled their order. This employee stated he understood and never put his phone number on orders to prevent phone solicitation. So this person's mad. This is what I gather from this police report. This person who's calling K-Bar is mad because their phone number was associated with the purchase of K-Bar knives. This person is mad at K-Bar for sharing their phone number with law enforcement or something like that, because now their name is being associated with the murder in Idaho because their phone number is coming up in relation to purchasing this. And so this person's calling up mad at K-Bar for, this is what I'm gathering is happening. This person's mad at K-Bar company for sharing their personal phone number with law enforcement because they bought a knife before, and now they're being a suspect into the murders of the Idaho 4 students. So this person abruptly asked, what can you tell me about the two feds? Sorry, this person on the phone, I think, abruptly asked, what can you tell me about the two feds who showed up at my door today questioning my recent K-Bar order? The employee, I guess I had these two people backwards earlier, stated she did not know what this person is calling was talking about, as she had no knowledge of an investigation. This person then stated something to the effect of, a K-Bar sheath was found at the scene. Now, follow the logic. This person stated she did not know anything about the situation and asked this person if he wanted to complete his order. This person stated he was a collector and had enough knives for now. He also, he says he had enough for now, but I believe he's ordering knives a lot. So he said, I have enough knives for now. I'm a collector. I've got enough knives. He also added that he better hold off until things die down, because he's getting tired of police calling him in relation to the murders of Idaho, because he buys K-Bar knives a lot. I spoke with Detective Boone and Barrett on 12. So now the police officer is following up. There's a weird phone call from K-Bar. Somebody's saying, hey, look, officers reached out. This guy was mad about the fact that there was a knife sheath left at the murder scene, and now detectives are pounding on his door because he bought a K-Bar knife. So he reaches out. This detective spoke to Detectives Boone and Barrett and asked them if they mentioned a knife sheath. Both detectives stated they did not mention anything about a knife sheath, and that the conversation with that person was very routine. They did not record the conversation. Why is this important? Let's finish this last sentence, and I will highlight this so you understand why the F we spent so much time on this. I called this person back on 12/13 and asked her to tell me about the call with that person. This person reiterated the contents of the statement. However, they stated that one of the investigators told her that, sorry, let me back this up. However, she told her the K-Bar knife sheath was left at the scene, and added, that one of her investigators told her that investigation into that person continues. Now, that's a horrible sentence, and I slaughtered the piss out of it. Let me explain what the problem is. What they're saying is this caller calls on the phone, and he's pissed off about detectives coming and asking about a knife sheath, a purchase of a K-bar knife. Okay, so the investigators are just simply following up. Hey, you bought a K-bar knife. They're wondering about his possible thing. They're not telling him a whole lot. They're just questioning him. Detectives are questioning him about the purchase of a knife. The individual gets upset because you do realize, he says, that there was a knife sheath left at the crime scene. The problem is the detectives who questioned this individual about the purchase of the knife say categorically, we never told that guy about a knife sheath being left at the scene. So how did this caller, who's not Brian Koberger, let me remind you, how did this caller, who's not Brian Koberger, know a knife sheath was left at the murder scene? Because the detectives who questioned him were simply questioning him about buying a K-bar knife. They didn't say anything about a knife sheath. So this person's pissed off because detectives are coming to them asking about his K-bar purchases. And by the way, you do realize that a knife sheath was left behind at the scene. How the hell did he know that? Officers never told him that. It hadn't been divulged to the public, we're presuming at this point. So now you have an alternative suspect. How does somebody who on something that hasn't been released to the public know that a knife sheath was left behind at the crime scene? Things that make you go, All right, 45. We got 15 minutes. We're cruising along. We will get done in 3 videos. Thank God we will get done in 3 videos. Don't mean to be respectful for Christians who don't like that kind of language. Pardon that. Brett Payne, 12/13/2022. This is about an incident on 11/23. This would be 10 days after the murders. On 11/23, I applied for and was granted a search warrant for Queen Road residence of some kind, someplace. The residence of JS. This shit is where we're probably going to finish, because I believe if this is the one I think it is, yeah, I think this is going to get off the fucking hook. There's 2 documents, actually. I think we're going to read 2 documents back to back, I think, if I remember right. And this is where we're going to end for today. Crazy shit. I believe, I'm going to call it, I'm going to say this is Jack Showalter. This is the individual who followed the 2 girls from the corner club that night, Maddie and Kaylee. He was there at the bar that night. There's a possibility that he knew Jack DeCoeur, that he was following the girls, trying to help make sure they got home safe, acted strangely around the girls, told Maddie they're going to get you for that, because Maddie was talking shit at the bar to Adam, the barkeeper, who's good friends with Jack DeCoeur, and Kaylee was allegedly, according to Howard Bloom, I know I'm going fast, I know I'm going super fast, forgive me. Howard Bloom wrote that night at the corner club bar, Kaylee was making it known to everybody that it was over between her and Jack DeCoeur. Anybody who questioned whether she still had feelings for Jack DeCoeur was put on notice. No, it is over between the 2 of them. She was lit up and she was talking shit, is what it sounded like. There was a time in the book of Howard Bloom where he said that a terse exchange happened to them. The officers looked on camera and they did note that Jack DeCoeur was indeed at the bar, that the girls did spend a lot of that evening at the bar where Adam would be the barkeep who's good friends with Jack DeCoeur. Jack DeCoeur kept his distance from Kaylee and Maddie, but something happened that night. Later on, as we know, as we were leaving the bar and Jack Showalter is following the girls, Kaylee is heard on camera very clearly saying to Maddie, Maddie, what did you tell Adam? And Maddie says, I told Adam everything. Adam is best friend with Jack DeCoeur. What was told? What did Maddie tell Adam? She told him everything. Who she's sleeping with? Who Kaylee's sleeping with? Is Jack DeCoeur really over his girlfriend? Everything that happened that night happens around the corner club, in my opinion. That's my theory. If I was a detective, that's where I would go with this story, not the incel from Pullman, Washington who can't get laid. But that's just me. I thought this was a better story. Now, if this is Jack Showalter's residence, and I believe it is, Jack Showalter, the warrant has been based off the following information. They get a warrant for Jack Showalter's residence. Why? Woo! Why? All right, Officer House and I responded to Queen Road at approximately 10 o'clock in the morning on 11/15/2022. We walked on the common walkway in front of the door to Showalter's apartment. I'm just going to call Showalter every time I see it. I think this is Jack Showalter. We walked on the doorway to Showalter's apartment and observed the exterior of the door. The area around the door had numerous spots of dried fluid, which appeared to be rust drops from the metal roof above the apartment's door. These drops were mainly on the wall next to the door frame, not on the frame itself. I observed what appeared to be a different fluid spot on the door, approximately 8 inches up from the bottom of the door under the doorknob. I also noticed that the deadbolt plating was clean, polished silver, and had no dirt on it. I walked away from the door in order to conduct an interview on a possible witness, Officer House, and several members of the ISP forensics unit, to include Detective Hugh Powell, and walked back to the Queen Road location. Now, pay attention. This is Jack Showalter. He is one of the suspects. Many people suspect is involved in this killing. One of several. There's many people who believe that Showalter may have been the only killer or may have been one of the killers. And there is reason this shit gets off the hook. And there's reasons why I want to know how Showalter got cleared. We don't find out in this 100-page document dump. The question is, will we find out before the 300-page document dump why Jack Showalter was ruled out? Because a lot of people haven't ruled him out, and apparently Hitler thinks it's crazy. And when you see what they've got on Showalter, you'll think Hitler's crazy. I think maybe I'm nuts. Maybe I'm the only person who thinks this is fucking important. Pay attention. All right. So they noticed that the deadbolt lock had been polished. It had been cleaned off. There's a spot of what looks like blood on the door. There's rust as well, but there's a spot of blood on the door, and the doorknob and the handle has been cleaned. You'll see later on, other doorknobs around the area have not been cleaned. They have dust on them. This doorknob's been polished and cleaned off. Somebody's cleaning up, and there's blood left on the door. That's important. I met back with Officer House and Detective Powell a short time later, and they told me they believed the spot of dried fluid on the door displayed similar characteristics to that of dried blood. Namely, Detective Powell stated that the spot displayed a cracking texture common with blood that dries on a surface. The spot also displayed a similar drop pattern. Listen to this. Listen. The spot also displayed a similar drop pattern to blood spots found in the banister wall on the stairwell to the ground floor, which I observed inside 1122 King Road residence. Now stop, full stop. We know there was unknown male DNA blood found on a banister going down to the main floor. A drop of blood was found of unknown male blood. We later found out that law enforcement didn't really test that blood further than knowing it was male blood to identify who it was, because they didn't need to, because they already know it was Brian Koberger because they got his blood on a knife sheath. If you are thinking that sounds fucking weird, you're not the only one. We don't need to test any other blood in the house about whether it's Brian Koberger's as well. We don't need to get Brian Koberger 12 ways. Why aren't we just finding Brian Koberger's blood on the banister and Brian Koberger's blood on the glove? No, good enough. We got it on a minuscule size of a grain of sand piece of skin cell on the inside of a snap on a K-bar knife. That's enough. We already have Koberger because of that. We don't need to look at any other blood. Well, that's the problem. Now, here's the thing. They're talking about how the blood drop on the banister looks to be the same as the blood drop here. And you're thinking, a blood drop's a blood drop. How the fuck can you know? Well, when you're bleeding, that blood drop, if it hasn't healed up or whatever, could be dropping the same amount of size based on the cut of the wound. So they're saying it's kind of consistent with the same size and pattern of the blood drop inside the house. Yes, it may be a stretch, but it's enough to make the officers go for a warrant. There's a blood drop inside the house. There's a blood drop outside of his house. It looks suspicious, those two things. They're obviously already looking at Showalter to come to his house in the first place. He was last seen with the girls, so why wouldn't they come to Showalter's house? And now they find a drip of blood outside and get a warrant. All right. Now, continuing on. Officer House also told me he looked at several other doorknobs and deadbolt plates on the doors in the same apartment complex, all of which had a fine layer of dust. Officer House also confirmed that Showalter's door did not have the same layer of dust, as though it had been cleaned off. Evidence that somebody's cleaning off their door handle because they probably got blood all over the door handle because it was on their hands. That's the presumption the officers are making. It's the fucking presumption I'm making. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to think that that might have been the case. Let's do our due diligence. Let's get a warrant. Let's go inside Showalter's house, shall we? Let's go. All right. So I returned to MPD and was notified by Detective Vargas, who was reviewing security camera footage provided by the owners of Linda Lane, of a possible footage of someone walking by the camera at 3:50 in the morning on 11/13/2022. Stop. We're going to now have footage that basically says somebody walked from Jack Showalter's location to the murder scene at around the exact same time the murders happened, and then go back to the house and there's blood all over, as you will see, that house. I wonder if they have anything to do with that murder. No, it can't. There's a DNA snap with a piece of grain of sand of cell of Brian Koberger's. That's the only person we need to look at. Follow this. I watched the film with Detective Vargas. The camera shows the parking lot of Linda Lane, which is situated directly south of Queen Road, of some location on Queen Road. The frame captures a portion of the Queen Road parking lot in front of such and such a place, but does not capture the apartments themselves. The area of such and such Queen Road such and such is also much darker than such and such Linda Lane. The video is infrared and thusly displayed in black and white. At approximately 3:50 in the morning on 11/13/22, per the timestamp on the video, a figure clad in dark clothing can be seen walking from the building which houses such and such Queen Road. The figure walks to the west out of the parking lot and leaves the frame of the video as the figure enters the sidewalk area between the two other apartment buildings at such and such Queen Road. The terminus of this sidewalk is immediately east of 1122 King Road residence. The figure is not captured by the cameras any further. What you have, ladies and gentlemen, is you have blood at the apartments of Showalter, who was last seen with those girls before they went home from the grub truck. You've got blood outside of his house, and they're going to get a search warrant. They're going to go in, and they're going to find blood everywhere in that guy's house. There's evidence that he cleaned off the doorknob of that house, that he cleaned off the deadbolt of that house. They've got a figure that's probably him or somebody that was at his place, but probably him, walking from that location to a sidewalk that terminates at 112, directly at 1122 King Road residence. They walked over to that. By the way, let's review Hitler's asinine shit. You know what? It can't be. This was stated. Ann Taylor said, we have alternate suspects that knew the layout of the house, that had been there before, and such, and they live right within distance. Hitler's, I want to have an aneurysm. Hitler's response was, we know it can't be any of those alternative suspects because the suspect arrived in a car. And if they lived within walking distance, they wouldn't have to drive a car. We're not talking about it. Nope, that's dumb. The killer drove a car. So it can't be somebody who walked over. Well, fuck you if you don't realize that if there's more than one killer, one person can walk over and meet somebody who arrives with a car. Are you an ass? Are you a... I'm mad. I'm furious. How is that not... Oh, I'm not going to allow alternative suspect Jack Showalter with blood all over his house within walking distance of the house, seen on camera walking to the murder scene right before the murders. I'm not going to allow that because the killer arrived in a car. Oh my God. I feel like there's a long game being played here. There is no way. Even Bill Thompson said when it was clear that the defense was not going to be allowed to enter alternative suspects, they threw up a plea deal. If the judge is not going to allow that shit, a guy who's seen walking towards the murder scene right before it happened, and then his house is full of blood, and they're just going to not test that blood. We're not going to go into that. We're not going to look into it because we know it's Brian Koberger. He drove to the scene, and you're not going to say, gee, is there even a scenario in your mind where Brian Koberger could have driven to the scene and met somebody there? And then we can back out further. Maybe he didn't even drive to the scene. Maybe it's somebody else's car. Because if you're going to say that one guy did it and it's the guy that drove to the scene, but now we know that somebody else walked over to the scene and maybe helped out with the murder. Come on. Like, why do I have to make this connection for you? Why? I don't have to do it for you internet sleuths. I don't have to make this connection for you. You guys are already on this. Why? Somebody freaking... No. I was going to say somebody call up Hitler and let him know. No, don't. Hitler's already stated people who keep calling him, he's going to turn over to investigations and have people basically run down by cops. So you don't harass Hitler. Let's do this the right way. Let's get a damn lawyer in here and find out why the hell Jack Showalter was excluded. And again, maybe I'm getting pissed off about nothing because we still have documents ahead of us that I haven't read yet that maybe will explain why Showalter's blood all over his apartment isn't a big deal. We haven't even gotten to the blood in his apartment. We're going to finish on this document, even though it's another one as big as this that kind of covers the same exact thing. Anyways, so based on the information above, NPD and ISP officers served a search warrant on the exterior of the front door of the Queen Road residence where Showalter's at. Listen to this. So based on the fact that they got an individual walking from that apartment to the murder scene at right around the same time that the murders supposedly happened, and the fact that there's blood on the guy's door and evidence that he's had his door cleaned off, gee, let's get a search warrant. Now, they can't get a search warrant for his house yet because there's not enough for them to prove yet that he might be involved. But what they can do is they can get a search warrant to test the blood on the door, and then they can use that to get into the house. That's what they're going to do. So access to the residence per the search warrant is granted only if the presumptive positive test for blood was found on the exterior door. Nothing was found during this search, and the warrant was returned. All right. So they basically were like, we want access to the house, but we can't get into the house unless you can prove that the blood on the door really is blood. And then based on that, we'll let you have a warrant for this side of the house. Okay, on 11/23, so it's November 23rd, MPD Officer Morris was contacted by JS, a different JS, a maintenance worker, not Jack Showalter, a maintenance worker, for such and such a place which manages the Queenwood residence, I think the same place where we were trying to get into. That maintenance worker told Officer Morris that he conducted a routine maintenance order on that residence on 11/22, wherein he discovered something of note. So the maintenance person doesn't need a warrant. That's great. In fact, it's possible law enforcement asked the maintenance guy, hey, you're a maintenance guy. We can't get a warrant. Can you go in there and check something out? Say you've got something to look at. That would be a great law enforcement tactic, wouldn't it? We don't have a warrant, but you know what we can do? We can go to the maintenance guy and say, gee, I think there might be a plumbing issue in that guy's house. Can you go in and check his plumbing issue? And then when you're there, tell us what you see. I don't know that happened, but that's something that could happen. Now, I had Officer Morris call that maintenance worker and place him on a speakerphone so I could talk to him. I asked this maintenance worker to tell me what he found. This worker told him that he and another maintenance worker entered that apartment on 11/22 in order to check on a water quality complaint made by the tenant. So, did Jack Showalter really call in a complaint about a water quality complaint? Maybe. Or was it an excuse to get into the house? Both men checked the kitchen and did not notice any issues. But the maintenance worker said he entered the only bathroom in the residence and began to inspect the drain, where the other maintenance worker advised there appeared to be blood on the shower curtain. So the maintenance workers are finding blood inside Showalter's place. The maintenance worker said he looked and discovered what appeared to be two separate smudge marks on the shower curtain, which appeared to be dried blood. The maintenance worker then described the smudges as 1 inch by 1 inch. The maintenance worker said he then noticed another smudge of what appeared to be dried blood on the toilet flusher handle. The maintenance worker then added there appeared to be a splatter of dried blood near the light switch on the interior wall of the bathroom. I asked this maintenance worker to describe the marks. He told me they appeared to be reddish brown in color, which would be consistent with dried blood. The maintenance worker added, I've seen dried blood before, and the marks appear to be similar to that. The maintenance worker added that the only thing he did in the restroom was flush the toilet in order to check the water quality. The maintenance worker said that the toilet appeared clean but became clogged when he flushed it. So it was something put in the back of the toilet. It was something hidden in the back of the toilet so that when he flushed it, the toilet became plugged. Did somebody hide something in the back of the toilet? The maintenance worker noted it was odd that the toilet became clogged. The maintenance worker said that he and his counterpart then left the apartment, so they didn't check apparently the back of the toilet, it sounds like. I asked the maintenance worker if anyone else had any reasons or means to access the apartment besides he and Showalter between the time that he left and the current time, and the maintenance worker said no. So they're trying to confirm that only Showalter could have been in that place. I served a search warrant with ISP investigator Jeff Talbot, Jeff Huell, and Jake Schwenke. We discovered, now they're getting into the house. Now they're getting into Showalter. I believe it's Showalter. Now, again, correct me if I'm wrong. It's redacted, so I don't want to get somebody trying to sue me for defamation of character because I said this to Showalter's apartment. I know many people out there are telling me that it is Showalter's apartment. I think it's Showalter's apartment, but it's based on redacted documents, and they won't tell us who it is. I think it's Showalter. All right. And we got to finish this document so we can get out of it. We're already past an hour. I served the search warrant with ISP investigators Jeff Talbot, blah, blah, blah. We discovered the blood smears and spots on the locations that the maintenance worker had described. In addition, there were more blood splatter spots on the wall of the entry into the living room. Samples of each were collected. 94 blood samples in total. And ISP Detective Talbot took photos of the residence. Upon completion, I left the required paperwork on the couch in the living room, and Detective Talbot took a photo of it. All units cleared without further incident. Oh my God, people. Oh my God. How was Jack Showalter ruled out? Blood all over his apartment. On video, walking over to the house where all the murders took place at the right time of the murders. Nope. One guy from Pullman, no assistant, only one guy. Do the math.